Good morning on this Sunday, March 23rd, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Governor Hemp gets a big check in the win column after his tort reform bill narrowly passes the House. We may also soon see an expansion of the controversial 287G program in Georgia that would allow local and state officers to enforce federal immigration laws. And the Atlanta Beltline and other major developments just got a pass on the city's tree protection ordinance. Melita, Phil, Theron, and Brian are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
The controversial tort reform bill passed the House by a razor-thin margin, with Republicans and Democrats breaking ranks.
All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no.
State Representative Michelle Al, one of 3 Democrats who broke ranks with House colleagues, voting for the amended tort reform bill. Senate Bill 68 passed by a single vote, with several Republicans voting against the controversial measure. State Rep Stacey Evans, a Democrat, says she's disappointed.
It's very disappointing. It shows a lack of belief and trust in our judges and in our juries.
Opponents say the legislation will make it difficult for Georgians to get the justice they deserve, because they say the measure makes it harder for victims to sue businesses when crimes occur on their property. Republican leaders celebrated their win.
Tort reform in Georgia is critical if we are going to maintain our standard as the best place in this nation in which to do business.
Members of crime victims say they were disappointed after urging lawmakers to include all victims of sexual assault in an amendment which now expands lawsuit protections to human trafficking victims. The bill now is in the Senate, where it's expected to, of course, receive final approval. So let's run the table. Phil, to you first this week. This passed the House by just 1 vote.
That's right, and it's going to be very close. Unfortunately, as we're taping, we don't know the final result, but
we do.
but I think we do. And so it looks like the Speaker, the Lieutenant Governor, and the Governor have got the votes. I'm going to look in the crystal ball here, and it's about excessive lawsuits. A lot of this was property liability, which is very important, and we can talk about insurance, because one of the big arguments was these excessive jury awards drive up insurance rates. And again, I can quote Insurance Commissioner John King, and he said, you know, I can't promise you that rates will go down, but if we don't do anything, they will go up.
Theron, were you surprised to see the 3 Democrats break ranks? I know you've been following it down there at the Capitol.
No, and I think in your package, it was a bipartisan group of women and men that opposed this bill. There was always going to be close watch on the Republicans, and I'm sure Brian and Phil will kind of take us into that, because there were a group of Republicans who were not a strong yes on this, and a lot of them kind of broke ranks with the Republican Party. But the Democrats, there was a few that had been rumored, and these 3 individuals decided to vote against it. But Lori, I want to say this. I think that Phil and Martha last week, you know, they talked about there were going to be some concessions. And I think that everyone who voted against this bill, the Georgia Trial Lawyers Association, they should be actually pretty happy with the work that they were done. Because of their efforts, because of the testimonies that we heard, we saw major concessions made on this bill, particularly in Section 6 of the bill. However, what prevailed was the leadership of the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker, and also Kennedy, Senator Kennedy in the Senate, and Bouchette in the House. If you look at the comments right before the vote, there was a lot of deal making kind of going on and pushing. So I think that, look, everyone did not get everything they wanted who opposed this bill. There were some major concessions made, but this was about the governor's legacy, the lieutenant governor and the speaker. But those senators and those House members who voted for this, this is going to move Georgia forward. But I do think that we should not, as Democrats, hit those 3 Democrats who voted that way. We got to basically be able to work together moving forward.
Brian, I thought State Representative Al Williams had a very interesting argument, because he said, quote, "You can't tell me for 11 straight years that Georgia's the best place in the nation to do business, and the next phrase tell me that this is a hellhole for insurance companies."
I have to give Representative Williams some credit. That's a pretty good line. One I would have used if I was on his side. And I will say, I have been fighting for tort reform here this session. I'm a huge advocate for what passed this week. And that was a question that I raised. How can both be true? But I think more broadly, we always said we can't maintain our status as best for business by maintaining the status quo, by resting on our laurels. We always knew we were going to have to make changes incrementally as we go, and that's what this is. This is a big change to stabilize the insurance markets. One thing that I think was notable coming out of the House passage, the first thing Speaker Burns did, and we showed him earlier talking about the importance of this in our business climate, but he said, insurance companies, you said that this was driving up rates. We're watching. And we're going to be monitoring, and we want to see lower prices for Georgia consumers. I think it's a very important message. I think it's a good metric by which to judge the impact of this law. John King, our insurance commissioner's comments were probably very honest about the fact that we're not going to see, a $100 bill drop in our car insurance or our home insurance or our business insurance. But if we can stabilize it and not have the 10 to 400% increases, and I did see some business owners that had 400% increases, that's good for everybody. Those prices get passed on to consumers.
Melita, Speaker Burns, let's talk about some of these insurance rates, because Speaker Burns has set up a study committee to study the insurance industry's rates and profits here in Georgia. You've heard the skeptics, and they said that this tort reform measure won't do anything to bring down insurance rates.
Well, if you look at Florida, which passed similar legislation 2 years ago, it did not reduce any insurance rates there. And in fact, it was proven that the insurance companies in Florida lied about their profit margins and hid money in other accounts. So that's, it should have been that we studied the insurance industry before we started limiting the right of trial by jury for ordinary citizens, because there's no constitutional right more ancient. The right of trial by jury goes back to the Magna Carta. And I thought it was very interesting that Tanya Miller, so many of our viewers tell us that they watch this program as they're getting ready for church, and she used biblical comparisons by saying that the tort reform, that the ability to sue, and what this bill does is restrict that. The ability to sue allowed the Davids with a slingshot an equal footing with Goliath. And I think that was a very interesting point of view.
Phil?
The damages by jury should be actual costs. This is where the trial lawyers have been ripping people off in these excessive cases, and so I think that ought to be underscored. This is a reform, and I would tell lawmaker Williams that 11 straight years we were the best place to do business. That's why we need to pass tort reform to keep that record.
Real quick, I think Al Williams, I agree with Brian, that was a good quote. You got to give him credit on that. But the one thing I don't want overshadowed here, Lori, is the business owners. You had hundreds and hundreds of business owners from the state of Georgia who come together, small businesses. You had groups like Competitive Georgia who have been working on this. I know Brian just mentioned he's been working on this for a long time. So these are folks that have been working on this for years. They deserve a lot of credit. The physicians, the farmers, all these folks really, really put their money where their mouth was. And also the Georgia Chamber of Commerce stepped up big as well.
Brian, I asked Theron about the Democrats who broke ranks, but what about the Republicans who broke ranks? What's the political fallout for them, if any?
If you had not transitioned to that, I was going to butt in and talk about this anyway. Because this is going to be, I love Georgia politics, right? And there's nothing I love more than a good horse race and a good confrontation. Brian Kemp made some big promises. He says, if you vote no, I'm coming after you using the money that I have in my PAC. And let's see if he really does it. That will be fascinating to watch, because to do it, you're going to need to begin recruiting opponents right now for them to qualify in March of next year. One of the best parlor games that we will have in Georgia in 2025.
You get all excited about this.
I do. It is so much fun.
All right. Coming up, Governor Brian Kemp orders a statewide crackdown on illegal immigration, training every state law enforcement officer to step in. So what does that mean for public safety? We'll discuss next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Governor Kemp has directed the Department of Public Safety to have all 1,100 sworn officers trained to help identify and apprehend illegal immigrants who may pose a public safety risk here in Georgia. Now, the controversial 287G program allows ICE to delegate federal immigration enforcement duties to state and local law enforcement. Melita, I want to get your take on this move by Governor Kemp.
Well, I can understand where the governor is coming from, but what we need to have state officers do is focus on violent criminals. The administration is ignoring federal court orders, which would provide due process for the people apprehended before they're deported. The current administration is thumbing their nose at federal judges who've said, wait a minute, hold up, turn flights back. So I would hate to see Georgia become a state where federal court orders are ignored.
Phil.
Well, the White House pushes back vigorously on that smear. But if you've got a green card or if you've got convictions, you can be deported. Just the other day in Athens, ICE came in and got the brother of the killer of Lake and Riley. To hell with due process there. He's gone. But what the governor did is overdue. That's 1,100 more people that are going to be trained by ICE, Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement to apprehend and deport people. I'm glad they're looking at Athens. They'll be looking at Atlanta. And and the governor was very clear. We've got a lot of gangs here that are illegals, and we got to clean them out. And he's going to work with the Trump administration.
You know, in Georgia, we do have a gang problem. Attorney General Chris Carr talks about how there's gang activity in all but maybe one or two counties in Georgia. But we also have violent criminals. And I want to back up what Melita just said. We are all for it as Democrats. If people are here and they're violent and they're criminals and they continue to keep committing bad things, you know, happening in this state, yeah, they definitely need to be apprehended.
Like under Biden?
But this is a stat. You know, illegal immigrants in this country commit less crimes than natural born citizens. But it goes back to what I want to give her credit. Gigi Pedreza, the executive director of the Atlanta-based Latino Community Fund, said, "We are concerned about the potential of profiling and show me your papers activities affecting hardworking immigrants who are no danger to anyone." And I know a lot of those hardworking immigrants who are here, who are working every single day. They're paying taxes. They're making valuable contributions to this state. So while the governor definitely wants the training, I want to make sure that the training is done properly. And I know where he's going with that. But we got to make sure that we don't go into this profiling sort of situation where people are literally just being pulled off the streets, pulled out of their homes, pulled out of churches because they're here trying to make a living.
Brian?
The question comes down to this. We have limited resources. Are we going to use those resources to crack down on illegal immigration, or are we not? Because I'll tell you, the position in our nation for the last 2 to 3 decades has been we are not. This is not going to be a priority for us. And President Trump has changed that. He's changed the conversation. And this is not a new program. We had numerous counties that were involved in this program for many years. It's something that Governor Deal campaigned on back in 2010, that far back, 15 years ago, about expanding this program throughout the state. And one thing I do want to point out to the quote that Theron used, this training doesn't mean these folks are going to go with ICE and knock on doors and go through churches or go through businesses and grab people. It's when they arrest somebody who has committed a crime, and then what happens after that point. It's very different. These guys are not going to be, taking sticks and going through people's front doors.
Well, I think what remains to be seen is what happens because of this atmosphere of fear which is being created when it's time for Georgia's agricultural crops to be harvested this spring as weather warms up.
That's the H-2A visa program. It is a legal guest worker program that the Trump administration is for. Businesses are for. It's very popular. That has nothing to do with these criminals that are going to be deported. And this business of, they don't commit that many crimes. Yeah, they do. Gang crime is rising in this state.
Yeah, but the gang activity people here feel are people who are citizens, people who are born in the state.
No, there's a lot of illegal. We have the Venezuelan gang here in Atlanta, and we have foreign gangs
and charges for crime predominantly are citizens. There's been a lie promulgated that immigrants are.
Well, then they have due process if they're citizens. So
look, everybody
the Democrats,
has due process.
You don't like deportation. You don't like this enforcement. Admit it.
What
Why don't
I
you
like,
Democrats admit it?
What I like is the fact that the Constitution of the United States of America gives anyone on the soil of this country due process.
Not illegals.
And yes, it does. Anybody on the soil of this country has a right to due process, and Republicans in this administration are ignoring that right.
That's ridiculous.
Okay, we're going to move on. Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis has just 1 month to pay over $50,000 in attorney's fees. According to a judge's order, it's for violating the state's Open Records Act. Now, this is the latest development in an open records dispute between Willis's office and defense attorney Ashley Merchant. The judge found the DA's office had been openly hostile to Merchant. Brian.
You know, Lori, what people say about me, that I'm a really nice guy. And I do not like constantly saying negative
Do they?
things. That's what it's everyone is saying.
Now when you were in the government.
All the polls are showing that I'm very nice. and I don't like to beat up on anybody, but my Lord, what can I do when she keeps doing this stuff? The law is very clear.
You mean Fonnie Willis?
Fonnie Willis, when you present yourself as the arbiter of what is right and wrong, particularly when you wade into some legal gray areas, as she has with the Trump and the case against the alternate electors, you better be pure as the wind-driven snow. And what we see here is what we have seen for a couple of years. I'm going to investigate you, but you're not going to look at me. Those rules apply to them, not to us. And the law on open records is very clear. Congratulations to Judge Krause, who I hung out for a little bit with last week, for setting the record straight and making sure that a DA must follow the law like everyone else that she prosecutes.
In this state, you got Democrats and you got Republicans who have struggled with open records requests. You know, we've had former mayors, former Republican leaders, former Democratic leaders who have gotten fines because they don't follow the law when it comes to open records requests. So essentially what your friend Judge Krause did is that she came back and said, based on the evidence that was presented and not turned over, the DA's office violated the open records request. So now they're going to pay $54,000. I just would say this, Lori, you know, this was a very, very divisive case with the president. The district attorney did her job. She was reelected. The people of Fulton County wanted her to continue on the job. I kind of agree with Brian, a little less hostile in his approach, that we do need to move on from this and just pay the fines. Let's present the evidence. And I just think there's so many more important issues in Fulton County we could be talking about right now.
Well, the message has been sent about open records. Comply
Absolutely.
with the law.
Yeah, you got to comply.
Well,
you got to comply.
that's right. And let's just tell real quickly the viewers what she was trying to hide, and that was her relationship with Nathan Wade, her lover, who was the prosecutor against the witch hunt with Trump.
And we've talked about that a million times.
Right.
So we're moving on. The Atlanta Beltline and other major developments just got a pass on the city's tree protection ordinance. What does this mean for the city's green spaces? Well, we're breaking it all down next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
A major change to Atlanta's tree protection ordinance is stirring up a lot of debate. The city council has voted to temporarily exempt the Beltline and other major infrastructure projects, arguing that the current rules slow construction, increase costs, and offer little public benefit. Melita, what does this mean for the city's green spaces? Because I know when I was building my house, I had to make sure I had every tree permit and I had to replace every tree that we took down.
Yeah. Well, it's not a good look when a governmental entity says, oh, the rules that you have to follow are not for me. And the city has a goal of maintaining a 50% canopy coverage, and the city has slipped below that. And so I think what this current debate shows us is that there needs to be very careful look at the current tree ordinance, the fees imposed, and bring it up to what it actually costs to replace the trees that developers are removing.
Phil.
I think you're getting something right here. I'm amazed. The canopy has gone down. It's under 46%. To your point, yeah, everybody has to be permitted. We need that tree coverage. I have not read what the rule is. I understand it's sunsetted. I don't know how long this is for, but I sympathize with this.
All right, moving on. The Georgia Senate has approved 2 new bills that would impose stricter regulations on hemp products, making some items currently sold in smoke shops and convenience stores illegal. Now, one bill would ban THC-infused drinks, while the other limits some ingredients like Delta-8 THC. Brian.
Yeah, I think we've been spooked by THC for too long. And these are very minimal amounts that are in these drinks. And we already allow alcohol to be served pretty much everywhere we go. And those are probably more intoxicating than what we're talking about here with these drinks. This is about freedom. This is about consumer choice. We are much more conservative in our laws already, right, on how this THC is consumed than the most other states of the country, right? We are singularly very conservative. This is not hurting anybody. If we're going to have alcohol, let's have this. Look, I'm for reduced harm products. Don't we want people to drink something that's probably got less calories than beer and not smoke it? Because smoking kills you. THC does not kill you. It does not give you cancer. Smoking does. So let's do it a different way. We know Georgians like THC because I can smell it when I walk around in downtown.
Oh, Theron, help us out. Because when kids get a hold of these drinks, that's when I have a problem. And if some
But that's illegal.
Oh, okay, but if some of these stores would actually card folks who
That's
are
a different issue.
Well, it is,
they
but
can
it's
smoke it.
accessible to kids. Theron.
Well, you have to be 21 years of age to get it. To your point about it being legal.
Same with alcohol.
Same with alcohol, and then it goes back to, I'm agree with Brian on this one, that it's a fairness issue. But we also know, Lori, that people are trying to figure out a healthier way to actually drink anything, right? And they are. And I think that as you look at studies show that people are drinking less alcohol, and THC drinks are a more healthy way for them to get a brief high. And so, back to Brian's point, the amount, the legal limit that you have to put in there is so low that, if you consume more of anything, you're going to feel it. But I also want to say that Senator Kate Kirkpatrick has a bill that I think is a little bit probably more sensible in this approach. And so I agree with Brian. I think that it's fine here. And you've seen liquor companies come out, hemp companies come out, vehemently oppose against this bill that's trying to eliminate, which I think is a good operation in the state of Georgia.
All right.
Now, the polls show that Brian is for people getting on the high on this, right?
That's why
The
people
polls
like
show
you.
that Brian
people
is for
like you?
people having consumer choice.
And
against the nanny state.
And drinking responsibly as well.
Yeah, if you drink those low levels, if you drink enough to get really high, you're going to be in the bathroom all day. That's what you're going to do.
And it helps people too that go through, that can't sleep, people who need to be a little bit more
right,
alert.
it's medicinal.
And the pain, like people who have aching bones and in their bodies, it helps with all that.
Cry me a river.
And I don't use this stuff, right? I just want to.
Really?
This is about. I don't. Consumer choice.
I do
Reduced
that.
harm products.
Phil, I want to talk about our friend Senator Brandon Beach because there's some late breaking news about him.
That's right. When we were coming on the set, he is being named the treasurer of the United States. Now, not the U.S. Treasury Secretary, the treasurer. So we can finally find out, for example, if there's gold in Fort Knox, and his name will be on the dollar bill, and there's no Senate confirmation. So congratulations to Brandon Beach.
So can I say my line?
Yeah, what do you have to say?
We're going to have beach bucks.
Beach bucks.
Theron.
Well, what's interesting is,
Thank you.
Congratulations to Senator Brandon Beach, who has been loyal to this president for a very, very long time. And when you see him at the Capitol, I mean, he's still working very hard. So I think the timing of this announcement would be good. But he has promised me, Lori, that he will sign a dollar bill for me because his name is on there. So I can't wait to get that signature.
All right, Brian.
No, it's cool. It's a great honor. And look, it's somewhat of a ceremonial post, but how cool is it to have your name on the money, right? That's something that you can't ever take away from him. That's pretty cool.
All right, Melita, weigh in.
Well, he'll have to resign his seat, and it will be a heavily competitive race because his reelection bid was heavily competitive.
Yes.
But it's a Republican seat.
It was heavily competitive.
All right, we'll leave it
Results.
there, folks. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Well, the Sandy Springs Police Department has welcomed a new recruit to its canine unit, but there's a twist. He's not a dog. He's a goat. The canine jumper is the department's newest crime-fighting companion. Unlike traditional canine officers, Jumper is hoofing it into the force with a special skill set, which includes narcotics detection, headbutting, and so Brian, he's probably going to sniff out some of those THC-laced drinks.
Yeah, glad he's not in Brookhaven. My winners are the Troup County GOP and Leadership Columbia County, both of which had me come speak to them this week. Great groups. Thank you all for having me. My loser is my friend, and she is my friend, State Representative Stacey Evans, for attacking the Democrats who voted their conscience and did the right thing on tort reform. I'll remind her the establishment Democrats treated her so poorly in 2018 when she ran against Stacey Abrams, and now she is playing that role against these other Democrats. It's unfortunate to see that.
Darren.
I want to start by making former Mayor Shirley Franklin a winner this week. The City Council and the Mayor's office came together, opened it up to the public, and they figured out a way, what's the best way that we can honor this first female mayor in the city of Atlanta. And they're going to rename the largest park in the city of Atlanta, the Westside Reservoir Park, after her. So congratulations,
Nice.
Mayor
Yes.
Franklin. And also want to give my condolences to the Young family, Lisa Young Alston, the second daughter of former UN ambassador and Ambassador Pastor Young passed away this week, so I offer my condolences.
So tragic. Okay, Phil?
You know, the Capital Policy Leadership Institute had their annual legacy dinner, and they do a great job in terms of training leaders in business and conservatism. And Senator John Kennedy was the keynote speaker, and so shout out to Sarah Douglas, the executive director, and Cindy Morley, who works with James Magazine as their president. Martha Zoller, our colleague, also got the White Rose Award, and what they give, it's the defense of the Jewish people, and she certainly deserves that, especially with her post on as a talk radio host.
Yes, congratulations to her. Melita.
Well, the campaign season is officially on with Saturday's campaign rally for Senator John Ossoff's reelection bid. It was at a music venue and restaurant in Reynoldstown, and he is demonstrating that he will vigorously defend his seat no matter who decides to run against him. The plans to close 5 of Georgia's 34 Social Security offices at a time when more in-person contact is being required makes DOGE a loser for me. And the citizens of North Georgia who staged a funeral for the office near their area are winners because they got on national television.
All right, folks, we'll leave it there. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.